Telugu. I'll have to speak in English. The only Telugu I learned was in 1972 in IAS Academy when a friend of mine, Dr. J.S. Sarma from Andhra Kadar, he taught me a song, O Rangayo, Pool Rangayo, Pure Super Salinchi Sagipovayo. I have a problem with my knee, but I assure you my backbone is intact and so is my mind. I apologize for speaking sitting down because I have a problem. First of all, I'm extremely honored to be invited for this occasion to give the 41st Memorial Lecture in honor of Mr. Puchalpalli Sundaraya. Now, I start my speech. Normally, I don't give a written speech, but I thought on such an important occasion, it is good to be careful with your words, particularly when the subject is very sensitive, like delimitation. Our friends, it is always a pleasure to be in Hyderabad. Few cities capture the idea of India better than this one. Hyderabad has never believed in rigid compartments. It comfortably carries north and south, Urdu and Telugu, biryani and technology, old world grace and global ambition, all at the same time. It's a particular honor to deliver the 41st Memorial Lecture in the name of Comrade Puchalpalli Sundaraya, founding leader of the Communist Party of India, CPM later, a parliamentarian and one of the most principled voices for the rights of ordinary Indians that this country has produced. Sundaraya understood that democracy is not merely about elections, it is about whether the structures of power genuinely serve the powerless. He fought for linguistic reorganization, for federal equity, for the dignity of those whom the system had left behind. The question I place before you today, how India balances democratic equality with federal fairness, is one that Sundaraya would have engaged with passion and vigor. I hope this lecture does some justice to that tradition. Hyderabad is the ideal place to discuss what may soon become the most sensitive question in Indian federalism, namely delimitation. Until recently, delimitation sounded like the sort of topic guaranteed to empty a conference hall in 10 minutes. It belonged to constitutional lawyers, retired bureaucrats, and election officials like me. Suddenly, it has become politically explosive, discussed in legislative assemblies, television studios, academic seminars, and increasingly in ordinary conversations across southern India. Why is it an explosive issue? Because several southern states fear that success itself may become a political disadvantage. States that invested early in education, healthcare, and population stabilization now worry they may lose influence in parliament precisely because they implemented national goals. That is a paradox worthy of serious national attention. At the same time, northern states ask an equally legitimate question. How long can India rely on population figures from another era? Can a democracy of 1.5 billion people base its parliamentary arithmetic on a census conducted when its population was barely 548 million? It seems his translation is longer than what I spoke. Now, both arguments carry democratic legitimacy. That's why delimitation is not merely a technical exercise, it is about the future balance of the Indian Union. This should not become a north versus south confrontation. That would be dangerous. That framing is dangerous and reductive. Every large federation faces tensions between demographic change and political balance. India has faced this dilemma for half a century and has so far managed it with considerable wisdom. Frozen one. Many Indians do not realize that our parliamentary map is still based on 1971 census. The interstate distribution of Lok Sabha seats has effectively remained frozen since 1976. This was not an accident. It was a conscious political and moral decision. India recognized that if representation were tied strictly to population growth, states that controlled fertility, like South India, would be punished politically. So Parliament froze the redistribution first in 1976 until 2001, and then through the 84th Constitutional Amendment extended the freeze until the first census taken after the year 2026. I would like to mention here that the first freeze was in 1976. And some people are critical, they say this was done in emergency in Indira Gandhi's time. But remember, 25 years later, in 2001, when it was Vajpayee government, they extended the freeze, which means both the governments of both the schools of thought that was the wisest thing to do, to freeze it, and the freeze is continued for 50. The next census, expected in 2027, that is next year, will trigger the most consequential redistribution of political power since independence. When this freeze began, India's population was around 548 million, as I mentioned earlier. Today we are approaching 1.5 billion, so 3 times the population. Yet, the representation still rests on the arithmetic of another India 50 years ago, an India that no longer exists demographically. Consider what this means in human terms. A Lok Sabha constituency in Uttar Pradesh today may contain 2 million voters. A constituency in Kerala may contain half that number. Both elect one member of parliament. The vote of a Kerala citizen carries twice the parliamentary weight of a citizen in Uttar Pradesh, which is what people of Uttar Pradesh resent. Now, this is not a trivial distortion. Over decades, it accumulates into a serious democratic deficit. One more. Our constitution makes us knew that India was not merely a democracy of numbers. It was a union of extraordinary diversity. Numerical majority alone could not become the sole organizing principle of the republic. That wisdom is being tested again, perhaps more severely than at any time since the constitution came into force. The anxiety in southern India is real, rational, and constitutional. Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, and Telangana implemented population stabilization seriously and very early. Fertility rates declined in these states, women's education improved dramatically, public health systems expanded. These states did what the Indian state repeatedly urged them to do. Now comes the paradox. Tamil Nadu today has a total fertility rate of approximately 1.8. Let me explain what is total fertility rate or TFR. Total fertility rate is the number of children a woman will produce in her lifetime. And currently, all India average is average 2 children. And also, it is important to understand what is called a replacement rate. Replacement rate of population is 2.1. What does it mean? There are two parents, mother, father, they will go away, 2 children will take over, the population gets replaced. But what is 2.1 there? Point 1 is to take care of any early death. Some children die in their childhood. To take care of that, if the TFR is 2.1, that means the replacement rate, the population will not increase, it will only get replaced. The northern states have a counterclaim, and fairness demands we hear the other side with equal seriousness. A democracy cannot indefinitely deny representational weight to growing populations. The principle of one vote, one person, one vote, one value cannot be suspended forever. We suspended it for 50 years, can be suspended forever. A young voter in Bihar and UP cannot be told that his voter carries less weight because his state's population grew faster. That young voter did not make a demographic policy. He was born into his circumstances. To permanently undervalue his vote is itself a form of democratic distribution. As I mentioned, Tamil Nadu today has a TFR of approximately 1.8, which is well below the replacement level of 2.1. On the other hand, UP, despite significant improvement, remains around 2.7. This gap, accumulated over 50 years of divergent demographic choices, is now enormous. If parliamentary seats simply follow population, the gap translates directly into political power. UP will get more seats, South India will get less seats. Southern states and leaders are not being parochial when they protest about it. They are asking a fundamental question: should a state that invested in human development be politically penalized for doing so? That deserves a serious national answer, not dismissal as regional sentiment. The northern states are also changing. Fertility rates are falling. Education levels are rising. To freeze representation on a 1971 snapshot is to deny both the change that has occurred and the change that is continuing. The northern claim is not simply about political advantage, it is about democratic dignity. While South talks of political advantage, the North speaks of democratic equality. The Prime Minister and the Home Minister have repeatedly assured southern states that no state will lose a single seat after delimitation. And also proportional allocation will be protected. Under the proposed expansion to around 850 seats, the government is planning to increase the size of Lok Sabha from 543 to 850 now that they have a bigger building available. Under the proposed expansion to around 850 seats, southern states too would gain proportionately. Tamil Nadu may rise from 39 seats to nearly 60, while Uttar Pradesh may rise from 80 to 120. Both will gain. Not one seat will be reduced, proportion will be retained. But there is a catch, which I'll explain maybe right away. These assurances cannot be dismissed. They represent a commitment that delimitation will not become an instrument of demographic dominance of the North. But here is the catch. Parliamentary politics does not operate through ratios. It operates through actual voting strength. Lok Sabha doesn't vote in proportion, it votes in actual numbers. Today, the gap between Uttar Pradesh and Tamil Nadu is roughly 40 seats, 39 versus 80. And if 50% increase takes place, 39 or shall we say 40 will become 60 and 80 will become 120. Proportion is the same, but actual gap extends to from 40, it will increase to 60. That is where the catch is. So, which is going to be the different debate. Yeah. The problem I am discussing with you is not confined to India alone. I am going to give you 3 examples from different countries. The United States gives every state 2 senators regardless of population. Can you believe it? California has a population of 4 crores. It has 2 senators. The smallest state, Wyoming, has a population of only 6 lakhs. It also has 2 senators. Imagine every state contributing the same number of Rajya Sabha seats to balance, but that is not the case in India. United States has basically to ensure that population increase, which is represented through the lower house, does not dominate the federal structure. Then there is an even better example for us in India, which is what I have been advocating. Germany's parliament, Bundesrat, is equally instructive. States are not represented by population alone, but through a tiered system. 1, 2, 3, 4 tiers. The smallest states receive 3 seats, medium states get 4, larger states 5, and the largest 6. Similarly, I'm not saying that Sikkim and UP should have the same number, but we can have 3, 4 tiers. Larger states can have some number and correspondingly down below. Now it is deliberately weighted to protect the smaller states while acknowledging demographic reality. That balance, neither pure equality nor pure proportionality, is precisely the kind of creative federal thinking India now needs. We have to do creative thinking. Third example is Australia, which gives each state 12 Senate seats regardless of population. While its lower house reflects population, lower house always reflects population, upper house reflects the power of the state, equality. The two chambers together balance democratic equality with federal protection. One small factor. The lesson is consistent. Large, diverse federations almost always insulate their upper chambers from pure population arithmetic. India's constitution intended exactly this logic. The question is whether our institutions have kept pace with, with our democratic reality. Now, what to do? Several approaches deserve serious consideration. The first is to extend the present freeze, which has been continuing for 50 years. The logic is still the same. Therefore, extend it by another 25 years, if not 25, at least by 10-15 years, because if you tinker with that logic, you will be creating more problems. The first is to extend present freeze until fertility convergence becomes more complete. Rates are converging. Population increase rate is becoming equal, more or less, among the states, faster than many had predicted. A further freeze of 10 to 15 years might allow the demographic gap to narrow. This is defensible but carries a cost. Representation cannot indefinitely rest on data half a century. The second proposal is a composite formula, a weighted framework giving substantial importance to population while also recognizing objective indicators of successful governance, mix of the two, population growth and development which has been achieved by South India. This is not a radical idea. The Finance Commission already uses this formula. Population, income gap, area, forest cover and demographic performance, all these factors are taken into consideration by the Finance Commission. Finance Commission doesn't distribute the money equally, but looking at all these considerations. Why should representation depend on only one variable when fiscal devolution already uses many? The formula which I am suggesting might assign 70% weight to population and 30% to a combination of fertility achievement, female literacy, and infant mortality reduction. This would not eliminate the population advantage of larger states, but would moderate it and reward successful governance to the southern states. It is, I believe, the most intellectually honest option available. The third is phase redistribution, gradual adjustment across 2 or 3 election cycles, not all immediately, but over 2-3 elections, which will allow democratic adjustment and reduce political shock. The linguistic reorganization of a state succeeded precisely because sensitivity and patience prevailed over brute arithmetic.
ఇక మూడో ప్రత్యామ్నాయం ఇప్పుడు ఏదైతే ప్రభుత్వం డీలిమిటేషన్ చేయాలని చెప్పి అనుకుంటుందో దాని ఏకాఏకిన పదపోటుతో చేసేయకుండా తద్వారా అనేక రకాలైన సమస్యలకు అవకాశం ఇవ్వకుండా నిదానంగా దశల వారీగా ప్రయోగాత్మకంగా చేసుకుంటూ ఆ ప్రయోగాత్మకంగా చేసుకునే క్రమంలో వచ్చే సమస్యలను పరిష్కరించుకుంటూ మళ్ళా రెండో దశ ప్రయోగానికి సిద్ధం కావడం, దేశాన్ని సిద్ధం చేయడం, రాజకీయ పార్టీలు సిద్ధం చేయడం. ఉదాహరణకి మనకి భాషా ప్రయుక్త రాష్ట్రాల ఏర్పాటు గురించినటువంటి వివాదం మీరు చూసే ఉంటారు, చదువుకునే ఉంటారు. ఆ భాషా ప్రయుక్త రాష్ట్రాల విషయంలో పెద్ద ఎత్తున భావోద్వేగాలకి ఆందోళనలకి అవకాశం లేకుండా అనుభవాల ఆధారంగా ప్రభుత్వం విధానంలో ఉన్నటువంటి తప్పులు సవరించుకుంటూ రాష్ట్రాలు ఏర్పాటు చేసుకుంటూ వచ్చారు. కాబట్టి ఈ రోజు మనం ఈ రకమైనటువంటి సమాజ స్వభావంతో ఉన్నటువంటి రాష్ట్రాలు మనం చూస్తూ ఉన్నాం. కాబట్టి ఈ దశల వారీగా అనుభవాల్ని దృష్టిలో పెట్టుకొని తప్పులు సవరించుకుంటూ వెళ్లే మార్గం కూడా మూడో ప్రశ్న.
Of the three I have suggested, I find the composite formula, which was number 2, most promising. It honors both democratic representation and federal fairness. It creates incentives for good governance. It requires no constitutional surgery, and it has a working precedent in the Finance Commission model that India has already accepted as legitimate. Now I move on to another subject, Rajya Sabha. This debate compels us to revisit an institution is strangely absent from most delimitation discussions, the Rajya Sabha. The framers created it precisely as a council of states, a chamber where the federal principle will be protected. But our Rajya Sabha has drifted far from that purpose. Now, Uttar Pradesh already has 31 Rajya Sabha seats, Tamil Nadu has 18. If the Lok Sabha gap widens after delimitation, the Rajya Sabha, as currently constituted, provides inadequate federal compensation. Larger states in the Lok Sabha will gain in the entire parliament. Now, fresh constitutional thinking is needed. A tiered model similar to in a spirit to Germany, which I have mentioned, where a state has grouped by demographic scale and allocated differentiated but more balanced representation would strengthen the Rajya Sabha as a genuine council of states without requiring pure equality between large and small. There is a simpler, immediate reform. Another point I am suggesting, domicile requirement should be restored. What does it mean? That earlier you could contest a Rajya Sabha seat only from the state where you belong. Imagine in Tamil Nadu somebody from Punjab or UP or Bihar comes because he has the money and contest the election and becomes Rajya Sabha MP from Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. This is what happened in Jharkhand. People with money started going there and started contesting. That defeats the whole purpose of the Council of State, which is a check on group majority of the Lok Sabha. So that domicile condition which originally existed was removed, should be restored. That is my proposal. Ultimately, delimitation forces India to answer a deeper question. What kind of union do we wish to become? A purely majoritarian state driven by demographic arithmetic, or a federal democracy that balances numerical equality with regional confidence and national cohesion? The union must never appear to tell the South, because you succeeded, your influence must reduce, you should be punished. That would be politically unwise and morally indefensible. It would signal to every state in India that good governance carries political punishment. At the same time, the union cannot tell the North, because your population groups, your democratic voice must remain permanently undervalued. Democratic legitimacy requires that every citizen's votes carry broadly equivalent weight. That is a northern argument, which is also valid. India must find a path between these two equally legitimate claims. That path exists. It requires creativity, political courage, and a willingness to prioritize the long-term health of the union over short-term partisan advantage.
ఈ ఉత్తర దక్షిణ రాష్ట్రాల మధ్య వస్తున్నటువంటి వివాదాన్ని పరిష్కరించాలి అంటే భారతదేశం అంటే రాజకీయ నాయకులు పార్లమెంట్ ఉన్నటువంటి వాళ్ళు చాలా ప్రజాత్మకంగా వ్యవహరించాలి, రాజకీయ నిబద్ధతగా వ్యవహరించాలి, ధైర్యసాహసాలతో వ్యవహరించగలగాలి. పక్షపాతంతో కూడినటువంటి తాత్కాలిక ప్రయోజనాలని దృష్టిలో పెట్టుకొని నిర్ణయం చేయటమా, లేదు ఈ భారతదేశం ఇదే విధంగా సమాఖ్యంగా ఐక్యంగా దీర్ఘకాలం మనుగడ సాగించే విధంగా డెలిమిటేషన్ చేయటమా, ఇది రాజకీయ నాయకత్వం నిర్ధారించాల్సినటువంటి నిర్ణయించాల్సినటువంటి అంశం.
Indian Constitution is built on balance, and we have several alternatives which we have experimented with. The Lok Sabha reflects population, Rajya Sabha protects federalism, the Finance Commission balances equity, language policy evolved through accommodation. India's genius has always lain not in rigid uniformity but in negotiated coexistence. The time for reasoned dialogue is now. Before the census report comes, before the Delimitation Commission is announced and gives its recommendation, then the stand will become harder, they will be hardened. The time to negotiate is now. Before positions harden, before formulas are imposed without consultation, before constitutional restructuring begins without consensus. This cannot be resolved through television shouting matches or partisan triumphalism. It requires a quiet, sustained, multi-party deliberation that produced the original constitution freeze in 1976. I keep referring to that logic. What was logical then in 1976 is still valid today. When India's political leadership across party lines chose federal wisdom over demographic advantage. Comrade Sundaraiah spent his life insisting that India's promise must be redeemed for every citizen in every corner of the Union. The delimitation debate at its deepest is about exactly that. Whether India's democratic promise will be equitably honored across all its diversity. That's a question worthy of his memory. But I would like to add at this point, yesterday Mr. Viraya gave me parliamentary debates of 1952. And I was amazed to see Mr. Sundaraiah's far thinking when he talked of proportional representation. That's something which is being talked about not so loudly but still currently under debate, particularly after 2014 elections. As you know, we have first past the post system. Anybody who gets even one more than his rival is a winner, winner takes all. But is it really representative democracy? What happened in 2014, one party in UP, BSP, with 20% vote share, 20%, do you know how many seats it got? Zero. Now imagine 20% population, their vote goes waste and there is a zero seat and they have no voice in Lok Sabha. Since then, the debate for proportional representation has become live. That and proportional doesn't mean communal sense. Political parties vote share. If BSP got 20% vote share, it should ideally get 20% seat. If not 20%, at least 10%, at least 5%. But some voice in Lok Sabha should be provided. And there is a model which I have been propagating also, again a German model, which is a mixed model. Half the constituencies are elected like currently we do first past the post system, every constituency. The other half is on the basis of proportional representation, which is the number of votes a political party gets. On that basis, there is a list giving the 100 candidates, and if you get 10%, top 100 become the member party. Now, this has been talked about all over the world for 30-40 years. New Zealand follows it, some other countries, and even in Asia, Sri Lanka, and more recently Nepal follow it, and it is working beautifully. Why can't we try that in India? The time has come to debate and go back to Mr. Sundaraiah's speech in 1952.